Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Eloisa Ramos, and I am here with my friends. Hi, Connie. Hi,
Hi.
Teresa. And
Hello.
my daughter, Sonia. Hello. We are studying A Course in Miracles, and we are working on the text, and we are on chapter 4, The Illusions of the Ego, and it's section 4. Then this need not be. Okay. Okay, I can read without my glasses. Okay, so this need not be. Paragraph 1. If you cannot hear the voice for God, it is because you do not choose to listen. That you do listen to the voice of your ego is demonstrated by your attitudes, your feelings, and your behavior. Yet this is what you want. This is what you are fighting to keep and what you are vigilant to save. Your mind is filled with schemes to save the face of your ego, and you do not seek the face of Christ. The glass in which the ego seeks to see its face is dark indeed. How can it maintain the trick of its existence except with mirrors? But where you look to find yourself is up to you. Okay, so let's see. All right, so right off in the first sentence, it's saying that the voice for God is available to everyone without exception. And if we are not hearing it, it is because we don't want to listen to it. Um, and, and what it's saying is that we're making another choice, that because we are listening to the voice for the ego, that's kind of the choice. So if we are listening to the voice for the ego, then we're choosing not to listen to the voice of God, the Holy Spirit. And if we want to, and what would tell us that we're listening to the voice of the ego would be our attitudes, our feelings, and our behaviors, because they would be unloving, basically. They would be perceiving separation, and they would be unkind, judgmental, attacking, conflicting. So we would not be at peace. And it's saying, well, if this is what you're experiencing, then this is what you want. And why is that? Why is that true? Because our mind is the causal level. And so what we experience is the result or the effect of our thoughts in our mind, the thoughts that we are entertaining, basically, the thoughts that we are believing and listening to. And so our experience is going to show us what we are choosing. So if we are unhappy with our experiences, it means that we need to change our mind. We need to change our thinking, our thoughts, and choose the voice for God. However, this number 4 says this is what you are fighting to keep and what you are vigilant to save. The reason we do that is because we become very identified. We have made those ideas a part of our identity. We think that we know who we are, or we don't know who we are, but we think we can be the authors of ourselves, in the sense that we can make ourselves up into whatever we want to be. And that's why we protect those ideas, those thoughts. That's why we fight to keep them. And that's why we're vigilant to save them. So the changing of our mind is really easy when we really, really realize they're not in our best interest. Because otherwise, we're going to be very attached to them. So let's see, your mind is filled with schemes to save the face of your ego, and you do not seek the face of Christ. So the face of the ego is the separate individual, independent, self-sufficient self that I can be proud of, that I can, let's see, that I can compare to others and say, hey, I'm I may not be perfect, but at least I'm better than so and so and so and so and so and so. So it's all about the comparison and trying to make myself feel better that way, or special that way. And that's how I save the face of the ego. And the face of Christ is really, it's a capital IC for Christ. So it's the one self, which is the Son of God, which is the one creation of God, which implies equality. And that's why there would be no sense of difference, irregardless of what position or status or wealth or situation that I am in. There would be no difference between myself and my brother, because the face of Christ is the Son of God, and we're all one Son of God. So we're not different from one another, irregardless of appearances. The essential nature is the same. The glass in which the ego seeks to see its face is dark indeed. How can it maintain the trick of its existence except with mirrors? So mirrors are self-images that we make of ourselves that reflect back what we think we are. So for example, maybe I decide that wearing designer clothes, or maybe I decide that smoking is cool, and so I want to do that because I want to have an image of looking cool. So it's a look. I put on a look, and then I believe that that's what I am. So in other words, I can look in the mirror and I can say, oh, see, if I'm holding a cigarette, that makes me look cool. If I'm not holding the cigarette, then I don't look cool. But it's just it's a reflection of my own judgment of what I think, what I have decided is better looking than someone else. So there's always a comparison there. But where you look to find yourself is up to you. So if we look to find ourselves in the world, if we're always comparing ourselves with others in the world or with what the world can offer, we're going to be looking, because the world is a mirror. We're going to be looking in a mirror, because we're not going to be looking within where the truth of what we are is, where we can experience and come to know the true self, the essential nature of what we are as one self. If we're always looking externally to the world to be judged, cool, or to appear an appearance, then that's where we're trying to find ourselves. But we're not going to find. That's why the ego is seeking and not finding. Okay. Paragraph 2.
I have said that you cannot change your mind by changing your behavior. But I have also said, and many times, that you can change your mind. When your mood tells you that you have chosen wrongly, and this is so whenever you are not joyous, then no, this need not be. In every case, you have thought wrongly about some brother God created. and are perceiving images your ego makes in a darkened glass. Think honestly what you have thought that God would not have thought, and what you have not thought that God would have you think. Search sincerely for what you have done and left undone accordingly, and then change your mind to think with God's. This may seem hard to do, but it is much easier than trying to think against it. Your mind is one with God's. Denying this and thinking otherwise has held your ego together, but has literally split your mind. As a loving brother, I am deeply concerned with your mind and urge you to follow my example as you look at yourself and at your brother, and see in both the glorious creations of a glorious Father.
Okay. Do you want to say anything with that paragraph, Sonia?
Um, Actually, the mood number 2, when your mood tells you that you have chosen wrongly,
Mm-hmm.
and this is so whenever you are not joyous,
Mm-hmm.
that's actually really good. I've been trying to really see that the body and the emotions, the body doesn't feel anything. So anytime I'm happy or sad or that, I always attribute it to like the physical body, but it has nothing to do with that. So I think it's just I give my mood too much validity. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes I don't even question it. I'm just like, oh, like I'm angry, so I'm just that's just how it is. Like sometimes I don't even see that, oh wait a second, like that's a signpost. This is an opportunity to be wrong. I think that's just all I got.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yes, being wrong is an opportunity. Yay. Yes, it is. It's true because it's good news to be wrong, because then you're in a position to change your mind. Because if you don't question that, like you were saying, if you're saying, oh man, I'm in this really bad mood, I'm this grumpy mood, and um, and you kind of just identify with it, and you just say, okay, well, that's just the kind of person I am, you know, nothing I can do about it. My I inherited that from my father. um, so so then I think I'm right about myself. Okay, even though I don't want to be grumpy or angry. Um, so let's see. So the first line is important because it says, I have said that you cannot change your mind by changing your behavior. Okay. And most of us try to change ourselves, when we think, oh man, I have some things that I really need to improve upon. We're mostly thinking about behavior. And what this is saying is the behavior is the effect of how we are perceiving, how we are thinking, what we are believing, what we are valuing. So we have to go there. We have to go back to the mind to make the change. Okay. Because we can change our mind, and that's the root, that's the cause. So when the mood tells you that you've chosen wrongly, so that's feedback. Then oh, wait a minute. It doesn't have to be this way. Okay. It's my mind that's the cause. Okay. Now, as long as I remember that it's my mind that is the cause, I have a recourse. I can say, okay, I can choose to see this differently if, I am willing to look at where the error is, what am I perceiving? Why am I perceiving separation when there isn't? Why am I not forgiving myself? Why am I judging instead of, choosing the miracle, that kind of a thing? Because otherwise, we are going to forget that the mind is the cause, and we're going to put the cause outside somewhere. Oh, well, so-and-so said this and this and this, and that's why I am upset and angry. And, they have to take all that back and apologize to me, or I'm just going to stay angry at them forever. That kind of thing, because I'm making them the cause. So, so anyway, in number 3, it's really interesting. It says, in every case, you have thought wrongly about some brother God created and are perceiving images your ego makes in a darkened glass. So what it's saying is that we are misperceiving. Okay, if we're not feeling joyous, at peace, then we have made something up. We've made up a story. And it's not true, but we believe it. Okay. And so we've bought into our own imaginary thinking as if it was true. And that's why number 4 says, think honestly what you have thought that God would not have thought, and what you have not thought that God would have you think. And so that's why the lessons, the daily lessons in the Course in Miracle are really helpful, because those are thoughts that God would think. And a lot of times in situations, those can come up for us to help us to help us release the miscreation that we've made in our mind. Do you want to say something, Connie?
No, sorry, I had just adjusted my chair.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I kind of do, but how did you know? Oh, I'm pushing it down.
Yeah. I
Okay.
don't know. It was just a look in your face.
You've done that before. Okay. So trying to be a little discreet about it, but okay, so there's someone in my life whom I'm seeing as quite moody from time to time. And, so, and I look at it and I think, well, that's not my mood, because we say it's an outpicturing of our own thoughts. And then, but I see that, and then I get up, internally I get upset, and I'm trying to say, please help me to see this differently. But I'm just wondering what all that is. It's like I hadn't seen all the moodiness until there's been quite a bit of it that I'm noticing anyway. Yeah, and it's troubling to me.
Okay.
I don't feel it's my moodiness.
Okay, but that's fine. You don't have to feel it's your moodiness, but it's in front of you and you're experiencing it. And what's the cause? Where is the cause of what you experience?
For my experience, well, how I'm perceiving it. And so I'm obviously seeing some separation there. But where did that start? I mean, it seems like they kind of go together. Okay, so I see this there, and then I don't know, help me out here.
Okay, well, it's a mirror. So remember that, like this paragraph was saying. So if you just kind of objectively don't take any of it personally, and you say, okay, here's my mirror. Okay. And we think that the moodiness is in this other person. Okay. But what it's saying here is that we are perceiving images your ego makes in a darkened glass. Okay. So our ego is actually making those images, and then we think we see them in someone else, but they're not really in someone else. It's our little darkened glass perception here. It's like a little bubble. Okay. And so that's our mind. It's all the thoughts in our mind. So the moodiness is our thought. And it's a thought that we have repressed in the dark to not see it. And that's why it shows up as if it was separate from us, because we repress it in the unconscious.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's either an aspect of our own self that we have judged and don't want to see about ourselves, or it's something that we have judged and not forgiven in the past
Mm.
of ourselves or someone else.
And could it also be maybe another's call for help, call for love?
Well, it's always a call for love because, but it's not, and we think that it's someone else's call for love,
Right,
but
right.
there's no someone else.
Yeah.
It's just us. So
Mhm.
it's our own call for love. So why wouldn't we want to answer it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. That's, yeah. Yeah, I've been really looking at that a lot lately and just asking to see things differently in the other person, though.
Oh, okay. There is no other person, Connie.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's interesting though, because I feel like I'm coming or I'm in a good place and suddenly this comes from nowhere. This,
Yes. Okay, and that's the split mind. So if you go over here
Mm.
to number 9, it says, as a loving brother, I am deeply concerned with your mind. The number 8 says, denying this and thinking otherwise has held your ego together, but has literally split your mind.
Mm, mhm. Okay, that's really helpful because it's bothering me. Yeah, it's been bothering me. Okay, so love, forgiveness, no separation.
Mhm.
It's an illusion.
It's an illusion. And when we
Yeah.
perceive
Mm.
that someone as separate, we are literally splitting our mind. Because we're denying the face of Christ as one self, our true identity. So we're not able to see the oneness. We're not able to experience peace and joy and oneness. That's why we're upset, right? We're not
Yeah.
upset for the reason we think. We're upset
Yeah.
because we are splitting our mind and not recognizing our true self.
So anytime we're noticing anything in a brother, it's really us. I mean, it's hard to get. Another example, if I may,
Mhm.
I was in the car the other day, just as a passenger and being very, peaceful and calm, enjoying the ride, not driving for once. And the driver just went into a flipped out rage with another driver who wouldn't let him in, and it
Mhm.
was really alarming, just the sudden anger that was expressed, and I didn't say anything, and I was like, wow, and just tried to stay peaceful, but so
Yes.
again, is that me?
Yes, but what you're explaining, Connie, the similarity is the change in
Yeah.
personality. What seems
Mhm.
to be the mood. So
Yes.
when we identify with our mood, we literally seem to become a different person when that mood changes. And if it's sudden like that, okay,
Mhm.
it can feel really alarming because
Mhm.
the mind actually believes that it's possible that we can change what we are and become
Mhm.
something else,
Uh-huh.
not ourselves. And that goes back to the very, very beginning of what the Course says was why it's fearful, why separation is fearful, because that was the change change was experienced, was the first thing that we experienced in the separation, was the first time we experienced change. Do you remember
Yeah.
reading something about
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yes, so that's why, that's what it's triggering for you, is it's bringing back that the fear that the separation actually happened and I changed myself. I am no longer one with God.
Hmm.
I am now separated and someone that is not God, that is opposed to God, that is a sinner, that is, oh, maybe, evil, right? There's the good personality and then there's the evil personality kind of thing. Do you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
the light and then the darkness kind of a thing. So that becomes very scary because what happens is we lose the we go into the wrong mind. And that's experienced as a change.
Hmm.
But the wrong mind is not real. So it's not a real change. That's why the Course refers to it as a falling asleep. The mind is asleep.
So we could even take it further then, and just looking at the example with the Russian leader, you know, that same kind of thing. Like, we don't know what his mood is going to determine.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what they're saying, like,
Well,
we don't know, he's
well, that's the fear. That's the fear. And
Mhm.
remember that the ego thought system, the ego, is a very unstable system. And that's why it's so fearful, because there's so much uncertainty. We never know what to expect.
Right.
There's no consistency because it's
Yeah.
a dualistic thought system. So, okay, so he's in a good mood now. Well, there's no guarantee that in 2 minutes he's going to be in a good mood, right? He
Yeah,
may,
no, it just made me think about that after these experiences I've been having. So
yes,
I'm
yes.
creating this world chaos on
Well,
some level.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes, our ego mind is part of that. Yes, and we
right.
have a lot of help. There's
Yeah,
plenty of people that are also very fearful. So that's why the Course really wants us to understand that fear is our responsibility, and that releasing it is also our responsibility, because God did not
yeah.
make fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
So once again, could you just reiterate the piece about a sudden mood change is really
Yes.
reflecting what?
Yes. So let's see. I think it was way back. Maybe it was chapter 1 when we read about how the separation came about. One of the beliefs in there is that we believe that we can change ourselves, that we have changed ourselves, that we believe we can lose our divinity, that we can lose our holiness, that we can basically be evil and bad and unlike God. That's why we think we're separate from God. So for most people, like I grew up Catholic, so that's why you go to confession, because you want to reconcile with God, because when you're bad, you offend God, and therefore you're literally not in a good place with God here. God, is going to judge you and condemn you and send you to hell. So you want to correct that, right? And so that's the fear. The fear is that it's possible for me to do something, and remember, it's a doing, and it's based on judgment of what is good and what is bad. And so if I am judged, or I judge myself to do something that's bad, that's unacceptable, that's unkind, whatever, that's unloving, I believe that that's going to exclude me from the grace of God. And to be excluded from the grace of God is fear of being damned in eternal hell, which is eternal pain and suffering.
Mhm.
which is probably the most horrible idea that we can ever make up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to believe that an eternal, what is created eternal spirit can change, okay, and no longer be eternal spirit is probably one of the most terrifying ideas that we can have.
Sure.
Yeah, because if we just lost our eternal nature, well, there's no recourse. How the heck are we ever going to go to become eternal again? You know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So sometimes those things are actually a deeper trigger for that sense that I am separate from God. So it reinforces the belief that I did actually separate from God. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I have
Oh,
changed myself.
it's super clear now. Thanks. I think I can change myself, and that is not possible.
That's right. And therefore you see that in others. You see as if they've changed themselves by
Mm,
changing their mood.
mm,
And that's very scary.
mhm.
Yeah.
To the ego, well, yeah, it just isn't so.
It isn't so. That's right. But when we believe that it's so,
Yeah,
yeah, it brings up a lot of fear.
that's really helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. Okay. So let me see. Okay. So yeah. So basically that's the paragraph about changing our mind, not looking to change our behavior, but really looking at our mind and the thoughts that we are not thinking with God
Mm,
and returning to what is true, which is what you just returned to, Connie, which is your right mind. Yeah, because it's not possible to change myself. Okay, paragraph 3.
okay. When you are sad, no, this need not be. Depression comes from a sense of being deprived of something you want and do not have. Remember that you are deprived of nothing except by your own decisions, and then decide otherwise.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you are sad, no, this need not be. Okay, so first of all, my mood is coming from my thoughts, from my mind. And that's why I can change my mind, and this need not be. Okay. Depression comes from a sense of being deprived of something you want and do not have. Okay. So if we want something, it means that we believe we are missing something and don't have it. Okay. And to believe that would mean that we have changed ourselves, that we are no longer one with everything, and therefore are everything, and therefore have everything. Okay, so that's a very depressing thought. When we want something, we're in a depressed state because we are believing that the impossible has happened, that we have lost everything. In a sense, we've lost our identity with the Christ self. And so we're in a place of scarcity, of wanting, because we have a sense of missing something or being incomplete or being insufficient or not good enough or not whole, you know. And it says, remember that you are deprived of nothing except by your own decisions. So when we decide to accept the ego thoughts and follow those thoughts and identify with those thoughts, we are in a state of scarcity, okay, because that's what our wish for specialness demands. Okay, if we want to be special and unique and above others, there has to be scarcity, because what I have comes at the expense of you losing it, because there's not enough for everybody. And so it's saying we can decide otherwise. Okay, we don't have to buy in to that view of what life is, because it's not life. We just think it is, and that's the upside down. So we've made the ego thought system to be the foundation of what is true, and it's upside down, and that's why you know, it's depression.
Mhm.
So yeah. So in other words, the basis for our thinking becomes scarcity, and we go from there. Okay. Number 4.
When you are anxious, realize that anxiety comes from the capriciousness of the ego, and know this need not be. You can be as vigilant against the ego's dictates as for them.
Mhm. Okay, so it's talking specifically about anxiety, and it says that it's coming from the capriciousness of the ego, and so the ego is like a very capricious, spoiled child. You know, I want what I want, what I want, what I want, and I want it now. It reminds me of the Willy Wonka movie, the Veruca character. You know, Daddy, I want the golden egg. You know, so because it's very insatiable, because it's coming from a place of scarcity.
Mm.
Okay, it's coming from a place of being separate from everything, and so it's very needy. It's and so deep down, it is a call for love. Okay, it's a call to restore my mind to my own sanity, of realizing, no, you haven't lost everything. That there was no change here. It's a bad dream. It's a nightmare. Wake up.
Mm.
So yeah, and the capriciousness of the ego becomes almost like a little tyrant. You know, you can think of a 2-year-old. You talk about the terrible twos. It's a little bit like that, because the temper tantrum that it throws is literally it's demanding. It's very it's you know, very authoritative, but it's completely irrational. You know, it's completely self-centered. Let's see. And it doesn't know, you know, it's the course talks about a child playing with scissors, right? And goes into a rage if you try to take the scissors away. So that's a little bit like, you know, the capriciousness of the ego. And let's see, and the anxiety, yeah, so the anxiety is a conflict. It's a, if you think of the little toddler, okay, the little toddler is very dependent on the parents. It's a small little body, and it cannot meet its own needs. So on the one hand, it is very powerless, but on the other hand, it can literally manipulate the parents to give these grown adults into its wishes, literally just by wearing them down through screaming and yelling and whatever, embarrassing them publicly in the grocery store, you know, you know, things like that. So that anxiety is both, you know, I'm so powerless, but at the same time, I'm really powerful. by being
Mm,
outrageously upset. I have control.
that's a really good example. Yeah, thank you. The conflict there. Yeah, I think I'm in control and I feel out of control.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Mhm. And that's why it's in number 2, it says you can be vigilant against the ego's dictates. See, so it uses the word dictates like dictator, because it does really feel that way, because it's coming from a place of do or die, like, you know, there's such desperation in that capriciousness of the little toddler, that it really, really believes it, if it doesn't, if you don't let it play with those scissors, it's just going to die, you know, that kind of thing. So, yeah. Okay. So number 5, when you feel guilty, remember that the ego has indeed violated the laws of God, but you have not. Leave the quote unquote sins of the ego to me. That is what atonement is for. But until you change your mind about those whom your ego has hurt, the atonement cannot release you. While you feel guilty, your ego is in command, because only the ego can experience guilt, and this need not be. So that's really, really a good paragraph. Okay, so right off the bat, okay, it says in number 5, when you feel guilty, your ego is in command, because only the ego can experience guilt. So the Son of God, the true essential self, cannot experience guilt because it knows the truth. It has not separated from God. So there is no guilt. Okay. But the ego, who believes it is separate from God, can experience guilt because it believes that it has actually usurped the power of God. It has broken the laws of God. It has been able to make itself not eternal when all of creation is eternal. And it can sin against God. Therefore, it can offend God. It can attack God. So, hey, it must be greater than God. Just like the little 2-year-old, says, oh, if I throw a temper tantrum and mom gives in, she's going to give me the lollipop that I want, So I'm actually greater than my maker. So, okay. So back to the first sentence in paragraph 5. When you feel guilty, remember that the ego has indeed violated the laws of God, but you have not. So the true self cannot sin. Okay. So the self that when we believe in sin, when we believe that we are guilty for having offended God, then we believe we have done something that let's see, that can break God's commandments, you could say. Okay. And therefore we have to be separate from God, because we just did something to God that says that we are more powerful than God. So we have usurped God's power. And so that's quite a big fantasy. That's a pretty big stretch of our imagination. But not for a small child. When you think about a small child, okay, who can throw a temper tantrum and the mother or the father gives into it, it can literally believe that, it can control his maker, that it can offend its maker and be the cause of the anger that the parent is expressing. So let's see. Number 2 says, leave the sins of the ego to me. So what it's saying is, don't confuse yourself with the ego who believes it can offend God and with what it does or doesn't do. You concentrate, let's see, you don't have to worry about that because it's not real. That's why it says number 3, that's what the atonement is for. So the atonement is the answer to the belief in separation. It never happened. In number 4, but until you change your mind about those whom your ego has hurt, the atonement cannot release you. Okay. Okay, so okay, so when we believe that our ego has the power to hurt someone, then we are going to believe that our doing is the cause of someone else's hurt. Okay, and if we believe that we are the cause of someone else's hurt, then what we are saying is that they're not responsible for how they feel. That we are the ones that are responsible for how they feel. Okay, and if that's the case, then we're also going to believe that we are not the ones that are responsible for our own experiences and our own feelings, and that others are responsible for how we feel. Okay, and therefore we are not going to believe that that can be healed, that we can heal that, because we're not the makers. We have just given power, the power of our mind, to someone else, and we have taken that power to hurt someone else. So we have disempowered the mind that is the cause. And if we disempower the mind that is the cause, then the atonement cannot release us, because we are because it's a belief in magic, because we are because we're stuck by not accepting that the mind is causal. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so number 6.
Is it my turn?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Sonia.
Watch your mind for the temptations of the ego, and do not be deceived by it. It offers you nothing. When you have given up this voluntary dispiriting, you will see how your mind can focus and rise above fatigue and heal. Yet you are not sufficiently vigilant against the demands of the ego to disengage yourself. This need not be.
Mhm. Okay, so okay, so that watch your mind for the temptations of the ego and do not be deceived by it. So the ego tempts us with the belief that we can be greater than God. Let's see. Simply by believing that we can offend, that what we do has the power to cause others, God, to react however they react. We make ourselves the cause of other people's reactions. Does that make sense? And so therefore we think that we have control over their mind. Okay, so that would mean that we are greater than than God, than them. Okay, it's not true. It's a delusion. That's why number 2, it says it offers you nothing. Okay, so everyone, there's another place in the course where it says that no one can really influence us in any way unless we have already had the same thought, or unless we also believe the same thing. Do you remember something like that, Connie? No? Okay, so take the example that Connie gave earlier, okay, about seeing someone that was very moody, changing moods, and then she was upset over that, okay, and so initially Connie was believing that it was the person's moodiness that was the cause of her upset. Okay. And then when she realized, oh no, it's not their moodiness, it's my own thinking and my own fear that I have changed myself. And that's not true. Okay. So once she realized the truth, she realized, oh no, it's not their moodiness. That's the problem. Okay. So then she doesn't need to be afraid of their moodiness. She doesn't need to be upset by their moodiness. She doesn't need to have a reaction to their moodiness, right? Because she recognized that the only causal level is her own mind, and therefore she is safe. Nothing in the world can impact her, can what's the word? Can do anything to her without her consent. Okay. And so the temptation of the ego says, oh no, we have power over each other's mind and we can control each other's mind, okay, which would make us greater. Our mind greater than somebody else's mind. Okay, so if I can sin and upset God, well, of course, I'm going to think I'm greater than God. Okay, and that's what the ego offers, basically. It's in that it's nothing, because it's not true. Okay, all we're doing is we are dispiriting ourselves voluntarily, because we are buying into the story of being separate and therefore forgetting that we are eternal spirit. And that's why we are not joyous, because to be in spirit is to be joyous, because we have everything, our everything. That's the recognition. And so, and that's how we rise above fatigue and heal, by returning to the truth, which is spirit, eternal spirit. So it says, yet you are not sufficiently vigilant against the demands of the ego to disengage yourself. So as long as we want to be special, as long as we want to believe that we can dominate and control others against their will, and you can think of it a little bit in terms of the Ukraine-Russia thing going on, okay? Because you can say, well, this is happening against the will of Ukraine, okay? Just like we want to separate the victim and the victimizer and the abuser and the abused. Or we want to say that death comes without our consent. Okay, so the Course teaches that nothing happens without our consent, not even death. So this is a script, and everybody has agreed to play the part in the script. And so the only thing we can do is learn the lessons to recognize that it's not true. That's just not possible. Okay, so we can change our mind and stop projecting the ego thoughts that say, yes, it's true. Bad things happen to you without your consent, because your mind is powerless. You see, so So we want to believe, the ego wants to believe that there's inequality in the power of the children of God, and that's not true. We're all equally, the mind is equally powerful. So irregardless of the size, you can think of irregardless of the size of the body, whether it's a child or an adult or a small country and a big country. So irregardless of what seems to be inequalities in terms of world, world like wealth or position or what we tend to call power. Okay, the mind is completely one with its source at its very core and its very essence, and therefore shares in that power equally. Okay, now if we choose, like what it says here, okay, so we can choose to disempower the mind and go ahead and identify with the ego, okay, but this need not be. It's our decision. Okay, so number 7.
Okay, the habit of engaging with God and his creations is easily made if you actively refuse to let your mind slip away. The problem is not one of concentration. It is the belief that no one, including yourself, is worth consistent effort. Side with me consistently against this deception and do not permit this shabby belief to pull you back. The disheartened are useless to themselves and to me, but only the ego can be disheartened.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, we don't feel we're worth the effort.
Yes, so this whole paragraph is talking about depression, right? To be disheartened. Well, yeah, you're going to be depressed because, you give up. You give up very easily to the ego thought system. So let's see. It's interesting. In the first line, it says that habit of engaging with God. Okay. And his creations is easily made if you actively refuse to let your mind slip away. And what's interesting is that what it's saying is that our true mind is a right mind. It's the mind where the Holy Spirit, it's the mind that serves Holy Spirit, because that's the mind that is going to reflect the truth of what we are in the mind of God. Okay. And to let that slip away means that we are going to be in the wrong mind, which is the ego thought system. Okay. And the wrong mind is not our true mind, but we do call it our mind because that's what we think with. And so you could say that it's saying here that it's the belief that no one included is worth consistent effort. So that thought system is almost like saying, it's a habit. Thinking with my ego is a habit, and oh well, I'm not going to exercise consistent effort to retrain my mind. So that's kind of like giving up and just saying, yeah, I'm just going to choose the ego because it's easier. I've trained myself that way, and it's kind of like, a routine now. And yeah, it's miserable, but hey, I'm not alone. The whole world is basically doing the same thing. So yeah, I can be okay with suffering. You know what I'm saying? It's not bad enough. That's why the Course says that at some point, the suffering gets to the the point where it gets bad enough that
Yeah.
you said, okay, fine, I'm definitely worth the consistent effort. Where you change your mind. So something has to happen for you to really say, no, okay, this is it. This is it. There's got to be another way. I am fed up with it. Finally, I've had enough with it. And that's the time. That's the time that the mind is ready to persist in the, let's see, in the effort to let go of whatever of the ego thought system, which is the source of my unhappiness, because I'm tired of being unhappy. And I'm tired of being tired. Huh?
Yeah, even though, there are many times when I say, okay, enough already. I still allow my mind, it's interesting to use that word, to slip away. It almost feels like that it's just, that it is this habitual thing. And so catching the slide when it's going on. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yes, but the more aware you become of it,
Mm-hmm.
the more, the better you are in catching it
Mm-hmm.
before
Yeah,
it slips away. Because then you can just change your mind right away. And you're saying, oh, no, wait a minute. I don't want to go there anymore. And you say, okay, come back, mind. I don't want to go that route anymore, the route of fear. If you're able to notice that, you're in a very good position, Connie, to not let it slip away.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so number 8.
Have you really considered how many opportunities you have to gladden yourself and how many of them you have refused? There is no limit to the power of a son of God, but he can limit the expression of his power as much as he chooses. Your mind and mine can unite in shining your ego away, releasing the strength of God into everything you think and do. Do not settle for anything less than this, and refuse to accept anything but this as your goal. Watch your mind carefully for any beliefs that hinder its accomplishment and step away from them. Judge how well you have done this by your own feelings, for this is the one right use of judgment. Judgment, like any other defense, can be used to attack or protect, to hurt or to heal. The ego should be brought to judgment and found wanting there. Without your own allegiance, protection, and love, the ego cannot exist. Let it be judged truly, and you must withdraw allegiance, protection, and love from it.
Mhm. Okay, anything there, Teresa?
Wow. This is, it's almost like I wish I read these paragraphs at the very beginning of my study, because this is like the heart of it, it seems, on how to actually live.
Yes, because it's really making the decision maker the center of what we are.
Yes, and it tells you how to do it. It says, step away from them.
Yes.
And, look at them and see what that is and choose wisely.
Yes. So it's always saying your mind is the cause here. You have the decision-making power. So take it seriously, right? Look at it. Look at what you're thinking. Look at what you're believing, and make sure that the effects, how it's going to show up, is really what you want. Because unless it's the truth, we are settling. Let's see, do not settle for anything less than this, number 4. Because otherwise like it says up here, we're letting our mind slip away. We're despiriting ourselves. So we are letting everything slip away and going into a whole belief system of scarcity and fear. So everything, can be an opportunity to gladden yourself, depending on how you perceive it. If you perceive it with love or you perceive it with unforgiveness. Because the gratitude comes with the forgiveness and the miracle, with the healing of the mind. So there's a lot of it's almost like a what's the word? It's a return to a state of grace, because we open up to the spirit, and that is the state of grace, is to be in spirit. And number two, there is no limit to the power of a son of God. That is where we are, the mind is completely unlimited in power, because it is one with the will of God. But it says, and that's true for all of the children of God, because we're one son of God. But in line 2, it says, but he can limit the expression of his power as much as he chooses. And that's all that the ego thought system is. It's a belief system of limitation, of scarcity, of, seeing myself as a body that is weak and vulnerable and can be sick and suffer and die. Or seeing myself as an ego that has to fight and battle for attention and for status and for rank and for prestige and for respect and for, being somebody in the world, and all of that to get noticed, to, because I'm confusing specialness with love. And so it's a place of conflict and struggle and suffering, with pleasure mixed in there, excitement and that kind of thing, but it doesn't last. So, so at some point we can see clearly that it's not in our best interest to follow the ego thought system. And that's when we're in a position to really allow the Holy Spirit to heal the mind, because we're no longer going to give the ego allegiance, protection, and love. And so we can also, look at our ego and judge it. So judgment can also be used. It's a one right use of judgment in line 6. So we can use our feelings to know, to tell, to judge how well we have done in stepping away from the ego thought system. And so, Connie, if we're moody, if someone is moody, that's all it's saying, is it's okay, well, we're struggling with the ego. So, and that's just sort of, that's what comes with electing to protect the ego and to hold on to the belief in separation. Yeah. Okay, number 9. Is it my turn? You are a mirror of truth in which God himself shines in perfect light. To the ego's dark glass, you need but say, I will not look there, because I know these images are not true. Then let the Holy One shine on you in peace, knowing that this and only this must be. His mind shone on you in your creation and brought your mind into being. His mind still shines on you and must shine through you. Your ego cannot prevent him from shining on you, but it can prevent you from letting him shine through you. Okay, and that's the darkened glass. So I think the Buddhists call it a veil. And so number one, you are a mirror of truth in which God himself shines in perfect light. And the reason why it says a mirror of truth is because as long as we seem to be in a world, this is a world of perception, and perception is a mirror because it's not knowledge. So the best that perception can do is reflect knowledge, reflect truth. And that means that the glass has to be clear. Otherwise, it's going to distort it or block it or, get in the way. That's the blocks. Those are the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, the ego thoughts. And so what it's saying, once we can recognize the ego thoughts from the thoughts of God, and we can kind of observe them as they show up, we are in a position to really just say, these are not true. So I don't even have to entertain them. And then they don't, then we don't give them any power because we don't give them any attention. They don't capture our attention. Like for example, a lot of the news events, well, if you pay attention to what captures your attention, that will help you know what you are still giving value to in the world. And then you can look at why you're giving value to it and let that go. And then it will no longer capture your attention like that. Because basically we protect the ego because we see some value in it. And usually we get hooked because it's a threat, it's a survival threat to our body or to the ego. And we identify, it's the fear of death that really, keeps us really attached to the idea that we're an ego or a body. But the mind that recognizes that it is eternal cannot fear death because it can't die. And so it shines away fear, and that's a very helpful thing in the world today, to be able to bring forth the light that dispels fear, because there's so much fear. And so it's a blessing. It's a blessing to the world. Okay, number 10.
The first coming of Christ is merely another name for the creation, for Christ is the Son of God. The second coming of Christ means nothing more than the end of the ego's rule and the healing of the mind. I was created like you in the first, and I have called you to join with me in the second. I am in charge of the second coming, and my judgment, which is used only for protection, cannot be wrong because it never attacks. Yours may be so distorted that you believe I was mistaken in choosing you. I assure you this is a mistake of your ego. Do not mistake it for humility. Your ego is trying to convince you that it is real and I am not. Because if I am real, I am no more real than you are. That knowledge, and I assure you that it is knowledge, means that Christ has come into your mind and healed it.
Okay. Anything you want to say there, Sonia?
I think the line number 5, yours may be so distorted that you believe I was mistaken in choosing you. The first thing I thought of is the unworthiness. Because I mean, yeah, it's just kind of a big piece of the, oh, I'm not worthy of taking this on, or like, I think I'm not cut up to this, like this is too much. Like, that's just the one thing I that kind of popped up for me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yes. So the first coming of Christ, another name for the creation. And so the creation is what God created as God's Son, which is what we are as a whole. And the second coming is the end of the ego's rule and the healing of the mind. So the second coming, you could say, is the remembering of the first, right? Because nothing really changed. We just thought it did. So the unhealed mind believes it is separate, and therefore the healing of the mind reminds it that it's not true, or that the mind has not changed and the separation never happened. And so number 3 says, it says, I was created like you. So that's the Christ mind. That's Jesus. I was created like you in the first, and I called you to join with me in the second. It says, I am in charge of the second coming. Okay, which is used only for protection, cannot be wrong because it never attacks. Okay, so Jesus is in charge of the second because his mind is healed, and so he remembered God. He remembered his true identity as the Son of God. Okay, and because there's no separation, let's see, his remembering is really means that the mind is healed. It's healed, and all of this is over and done with. Let's see. So the sense of unworthiness is a past memory that we still value for some reason. And that's why we think that it's still, that's why we're still giving it belief. Let's see. So you don't want to believe that you are unworthy of it, because number 6 is, I assure you this is a mistake. So yeah, so that's what the ego would want us to believe, that we are unworthy of following in the footsteps of our brother Jesus. And the ego would say, oh yeah, that's be humble. Don't think that you can be divinely perfect like Jesus was. You're still a sinner. And so let's see. And so number 8, what it's saying is that, look, either I'm real and and you are completely worthy, and therefore the ego is not real, and and you're believing what is not true, um, or it's the other way around, and the ego is going to make itself real to you. So we kind of have to decide what we want to believe reality is, because one's going to give us true perception and the other one's going to give us false perception, and they're inverse, they're upside down of each other. And then the last little piece here, number 8, says your ego is trying to convince you that if it is real and I am not, okay, because if I am real, I am no more real than you are. And if Jesus, as the Son of God who remembered God, is no more real than we are and is our Christ mind, then there is no separation and there is no different. Then we are that Son of God. We are that Son of God that already remembered God. Okay. And so the journey is over. Number 9, the knowledge that, and I assure you that it is knowledge, means that Christ has come into your mind and healed it. So once we recognize that, just like the ego is a false identity, Jesus Christ is our true identity, then there is no, then the mind no longer needs to heal, because the mind is very clear that all this is just over and done with. And it is one with Christ, the Son of God. I don't know if that made any sense, but yeah.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, number 11.
I do not attack your ego. I do work with your higher mind, the home of the Holy Spirit, whether you are asleep or awake, just as your ego does with your lower mind, which is its home. I am your vigilance in this because you are too confused to recognize your own hope. I am not mistaken. Your mind will elect to join with mine, and together we are invincible. You and your brother will yet come together in my name, and your sanity will be restored. I raised the dead by knowing that life is an eternal attribute of everything that the living God created. Why do you believe it is harder for me to inspire the dispirited or to stabilize the unstable? I do not believe that there is an order of difficulty in miracles. You do. I have called and you will answer. I understand that miracles are natural because they are expressions of love. My calling you as natural as your answer and as inevitable.
Yeah. So anything there, Connie?
No.
Okay. So this is completely reassuring, because it is so profoundly, what's the word? Unequivocal. What, I don't know how to say that word. There's no there's no way for it to be wrong. Because it's saying, I do not attack your ego. Why would I attack your ego? It's not real. You know, the Christ mind knows the ego is not real. So I'm not going to go attacking Mickey Mouse, because Mickey Mouse is just an image on a screen. Okay. And I only work with your higher mind because it's the home of the Holy Spirit. And that's true whether you're asleep or awake. And as far as the ego goes, he works with your lower mind, which is its home. And the lower mind is not it's only it's a belief in illusion. Basically, it's our imagination. That's the lower mind. The ego lives in our imagination because we've given it a home there. And so, number 3, I am vigilant in this because you are too confused to recognize your own hope. So we are so confused that we think that our imaginings, our misperceptions, our misinterpretations are actually truth, and they're not truth. It's like we can wish them to be true as much as we want, but we're not going to make them truth with a TH. They're going to be true for us, and they're going to have existence for us, but that's the us that thinks it's an ego. It's not the true self. The Christ mind knows none of that is true. So at some point, number 5, your mind will elect to join with me. Okay. And together we are invincible. And so here's the hope that we have in the future here. You and your brother will yet come together in my name, and your sanity will be restored. He's not saying, he's saying it as a knowing, okay, because the Christ mind has already released the ego. So he's saying, look, it's already happened. I know it. You don't know it, but I know it. So trust me. You and your brother are going to come together in my name, and your sanity will be restored. Okay. I raise the dead because I know that life is eternal. And it's an eternal attribute of everything that the living God created. So therefore, death has no meaning and no power. Why do you believe it's harder for me to inspire the dispirited or to stabilize the unstable? So he's saying, look, there's no order of difficulty in miracles here. If I could bring someone back from the dead, why would it not be possible to heal depression, the dispirited, or bring stability to the moodiness, stabilize the unstable? Yeah, I do not believe there's any order of difficulty in miracles here. You do. So I have called and you will answer. It's not like, well, it's up to you to not answer. No, he's not saying, no, you have a decision. You can either answer or not answer. He's saying you will answer. Okay, the mind only decides the time. So we can linger in time all we want, but the mind will answer. I have called and you will answer. So we will answer at some point. And because time is not real to eternity anyway, it doesn't matter how long it takes in time. That's up to our mind to decide. And let's see, I understand miracles are natural because they're expressions of love. And they're natural because that is our true nature. Our true nature is love, because that is our true creation as love. My calling you is as natural as your answer, and as inevitable. Okay. So the Christ mind already knows that that all of this is over and done with. It's inevitable, and that time is basically also an ego construct. So once the mind lets go of the ego, there is no time. It's done. Back to eternity. So anything, any questions before we stop?
Just
Comments?
that statement of it's all over and done with.
Yes, and that's why to take anything seriously is it doesn't mean that we don't act on, the situations that show up in the world. Because remember that as long as we think we're still in the world, we are called to be the instrument of communication, to bring forth the light into the world through forgiveness, which is an expression of love. So that's what the world needs, right? What the world needs now is love. So, but it's over and done with because let's see. You will answer. Where was that? Yeah, number 6, you and your brother will yet come together in my name, and your sanity will be restored. So the acceptance of the atonement is just a matter of time, and the return of sanity to the world has already happened, in the sense that that this is a dream, this is an illusion, that is a past memory. So the present memory is the remembering of love as our true and only reality. And because time itself is not real, Christ, who realized the truth that this was all an illusion, was able to perform those miracles precisely because he realized they were not real. And what kind of power does unreality have over the Son of God, who knows that reality is eternal life? Well, so nothing of the world could have any power over the Christ mind. That's why he could resurrect from the dead. And so he proved with his life and his teachings that this is an illusion, that it's not reality, it's not life, because life is eternal. And that's what he is still teaching, and that's what we're learning, and that's what we are joining in the restoration of the mind to its sanity, which is our true nature as creations of God. And the second coming is that remembering of the truth. And so we are all, let's see, we are all miracle workers when we accept the atonement for ourselves and choose to work through the process of forgiveness and releasing of the ego thought system. Yeah. Which is what the Course in Miracles is, the Course. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that concludes it for this section. This need not be. It's our
I
choice.
told you it was a good section.
Yes, definitely a good section. So next time we'll do the ego body illusion.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh boy.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Good section.
Yeah, because that's important to recognize that it's an illusion. Okay. All right. So thank you. So thank you for joining, and we'll
Great
see you
class.
next time. Thank you. Bye.